So in this conference, I will talk specially about one cycle of pieces that for me is extremely important. It's called the traces, traces. No sé, no, o sea, interrumpan cuando sea necesario. Sorry, ask me questions whenever you need. You don't need to be silent. If there is something is not clear for you, please be free to interrupt, okay? The cycle I'm going to talk is a cycle, as I was telling you, that is extremely important to me. Why? Because in a way, it's a very potent genre. It means one instrument and electronics. It's very malleable because there is only one instrument, and at the same time the electronics. So it's very easy to change things. Is very malleable in one word, no? And it's very potent because in every sense it has a lot of possibilities. It has a lot of possibilities in terms of the timbre. We can change the timbre as much as the electronics let us do that. We can work on the space, not in a frontal setup, but 6 points in space. We can, which is the most important thing, we can work in the superposition of very different sonoric layers, okay? Planos sonoros. That's very potent, okay? And the other thing we can do is also affect the timing. If one instrument plays, it stops when it finishes playing, whereas with electronics we can do ad infinitum. Okay, so we can work with the timbre, with the time, with the space, and with different layers. So in that sense, I think it's extremely potent, and at the same time, it's extremely malleable because it's one instrument. You don't need an orchestra. You don't need to. So it's something very easy to deal with. Okay. So I started this cycle in 2004, but that's 16 years ago. And I have been writing those pieces for the last 16 years. And what is the most interesting to me, besides well, actually because of that, is that I call it like a formal laboratory. I can try a lot of formal aspects, formal ideas. I can work on them very easily and try things that I will later apply to bigger pieces. So in that sense, it's very important to me. When I speak about formal, let me open some people. When I speak about formal ideas, it's not at all in the academic sense. It's formal in the sense of how I will deal, how I will gérer, how you say that?
Manage.
Well, manage, how I will manage the energy, the tensions, the perception of the piece. So in that sense, the formal aspects is not only how I will construct a piece, but how I will manage all the tension of a piece. So when I speak of formal, it's not at all in the academic sense. That doesn't interest me at all. What interests me is having an idea, and this idea permits me to create polarities, because it's all about that. It's about polarities, okay? Music is about creating those polarities and creating tensions and things like that. So in that sense, well, this is kind of, I like to call it as a journal intime, personal diary. How you say that in English? Personal journal intime. You understand that?
Personal diaries.
Diaries, okay? Because I will deal with the things that interest me at the moment I'm writing it. So what I was thinking in 2004, of course, is very different what I'm thinking today. So every time it adapts about the idea I'm trying to to convey, okay? So I wanted to show you several pieces and talk about exactly this kind of formals ideas that I was developing in each one of them. So let me open a score and we're going to talk, okay? Let me see. Hold on. Do you have any questions about what I'm talking? No? Please don't be timid. Eh? Okay, so we're going to start with a piece that to me is. Um, do you see the score now? No, not yet. No. Do you see the score? No. Wait. Now, do you see the score? Yes. No.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we'll speak about one truss. It's called. It's the number 9th, which is for cello and electronics. Okay. So the first formal idea of this piece. Now, before I talk about that, I will make a little parenthesis because many of those pieces of these traces were based on a book. The students that have studied with me that here are present know very well all this. Were based on Calvino's 6 Memos for Next Millennium. There are Calvino in that book. This is a small parenthesis, but it's going to be very useful to know because many of these traces are based on those ideas. He talks about 6 premises that he wants to keep for the next millennium, that he thinks they are extremely important for the creation, for the artistic creation, okay? So he talks about lightness and its contrary, density. That's one of the topics. The other one is rapidity and slowness. Another one is the idea of exactitude, how one idea, how when you're working with an idea, how you arrive to really be extremely precise on the design of this idea. Okay, so that's the idea of exactitude. And of course, each one of these ideas has the opposite. Exactitude is the diffuseness, rapidity. Rapidity is not in the way that notes follow one to another. Rapidity is the idea that ideas are extremely agile. How from one idea to go to the next, and there is a virtuosity in the proposition of ideas. Okay. So this is the idea of rapidity. The idea of lightness is exactly how your idea will take out everything that is not necessary. You understand? All these are very important concepts when we are composing, when we are creating. So in this idea and these specific traces, I started with the idea of I mixed 2 ideas of Calvino's. It was the idea of exactitude and its opposites, which it means diffuseness, something which is not at all precise, okay? And the idea also, it was not clear in my mind, it was a mix of those 2 ideas, the idea of lightness and density, okay? So I constructed the form. Let me see if I can have, wow. Well, I think I will write here so you understand what I'm talking about. So this is the piece, okay? This is the center of the piece, okay? This is where everything converges and diverges, okay? This is le noyau, how you say in English, noyau? The nut, no? The nut? No. Anyway, the center of the piece. Everything goes there and everything goes from there. And then there are 2 other regions that frame that center, okay? So in that center, I wanted to it's so difficult in English, sorry. I'm used to do it in French or in Spanish, but in English is, anyway, in this center, I wanted to put really the fundamental of the piece, okay? And what is going to happen here is all with notes, all with the auteur, with pitch, okay? With the cello playing. And it was the idea of exactitude. Here I will work on this, on the idea of the line with very precise trajectories. This line will have different elements that will enrich it, like accidents or arrival points or many elements, okay? But this will be the idea of exactitude, how the line will be extremely sculpted, okay? And also this center will be like the, as I said before, the noyau of the piece, okay? So to have that, I say in the two other movements or three other movements that frame it, actually the form is a little bit like that. In the other movements that frame it, I have to have nothing, okay? So this, to be extremely intense, it has to be framed by things that are completely lightness, okay? Because here is all the density of the piece. Is it clear for everybody or not? Yeah, okay. So my idea was that was the first idea, okay? As I started working on the piece, the formal ideas kept growing and sometimes took me to another place. So the idea, I had a parallel idea that was to work on the metaphor of a note of violoncello. Let's take a parenthesis now. Let's not forget, put aside what I just told you, and let's speak, and let's see the next idea. So I started thinking the whole piece like a metaphor of a note of violoncello. If you analyze a note of violoncello, you take it in the computer and you extend it 20 or 30 times, you will see many elements. You will see all the spectre of the notes, the harmonic series, and you will see also all the noises that belong to this note, or how the string, the bow hit the strings, all the granular elements, all the ponticello elements, all the wood elements. There are a ton of noise sounds that are in this note. So you have the harmonic series and you have all the noises that belong to this note, okay? And also when you analyze a sound, when you take this spectral idea of a note that you have the harmonic series, the noises, also you have a fundamental, okay? So those are the four elements, the three elements that I wanted to work on this piece. The notes, les auteurs, the pitch, the fundamental, and the noises, okay? Those are the elements that form a note, okay? When you analyze that, so it's in a way it's like a spectral kind of concept without being spectral at all, but it's a metaphor of a note. So I wanted the piece to be that in a way. So in the first movement, which is also an expression of lightness, I will work only with noises. I will try to work on the timbre and the space. I have 6 speakers in the room, So I will work just on the timbres. You see here, I have a souffle, that breath. Here I have all the strings muted. Well, I'm not going to go sound by sound, but there are no real notes. Only sometimes there are harmonics, which are like, it's so hot here. Sorry, I'm in Corsica. It's really, really hot. I'm confined, so I cannot go to Paris where I work. So anyway, but it's really, really, really hot. Anyway, so what I was telling you is that, yeah, in this first movement, as I was saying, there is only noises and pure notes that are, how you call that? What did I say? The harmonics that are like, I don't have the word. Anybody help me? The simple sound, the simplest sound of all is well. It's coming to the sinus. A sinus. Thank you very much. So they are like sinus and noises, but not really pitches. Okay. So this idea was to, in a way, in a very not order way, in a very messy word, present all these elements of timbre and space. Okay, so this is the first part of the piece. And then it comes the part B, which is in a way the metaphor of the note, of the pitch. Okay, so everything here is this sisal, these sculpted lines. Okay. Here is a perfect place where I can really work with several layers. For example, as you see in just this line here, there are layers that are, for example, the line will, there are fast lines with accidents. So the accidents, every time there is an accent, it will trigger some computer elements. Or every time there is a glissando, the computer will pick up this glissando and continue it itself. So as these lines are played by the cello, there are several layers that are creating, you know, with the accidents, with the things that trigger the accents, with the glissandos, etc., etc. Okay. And then, so this is the second element of the piece. So we have the first is the timbral noises, the second one is the metaphor of the pitch, and the third element is what I call virtual, archetypal, fundamental. Because when the cello arrives to the lowest pitch, do, during 1 minute he will do a scordatura going to the lowest sounds audible until the sound we cannot hear anymore, and the computer is corroborating that. So during 1 minute is like a trip into the low sounds. Like I like to think about an archetypical archetype fundamental. Okay, it's all the fundamentals. Okay, it's from do to the inaudible. Okay, and all that is corroborated by the electronics. And then the last part, which is very short, is the same as the first one, but now, I mean, only noises, but now arranged in a very different way. Now everything is kind of order. I will start with just a little line in sul ponticello, with a balayage, with a swipe in the harmonics. Then there is a whole section with all Collegno stuff. And the last one is just granulations and noises by the eclipse, etc., mixed with harmonics. Okay, so they are like the beginning where I was working on timbre, but here it's all very organized, kind of. So there are like 5 mini sections. Okay, so that's the formal of the piece. That's how the tension, how I dealt with the tension. I mean, the tension was all in the center, and the edges were kind of the idea of this lightness of space, etc. Before we hear it, do we have any questions? Don't give me this silent numerical silence, which is awful. Everything is clear for you guys? Everything?
I have a question, Martin.
Yes, please. Who is talking?
I'm talking Nahuel.
Ah, Nahuel. Hello,
Argentina.
Nahuel.
Hello.
What?
I would like to ask you, because you talked about the idea you had in the beginning. To what extent do you keep the idea original, and which is your flexibility for this original idea? How this can change during the composition? I'm interested in that.
Actually, I like very much this question for two reasons. First of all, I will answer you, but this question is very important because here I kept the two ideas. I mean, my first idea was this density in the middle and this lightness in the edges, okay, to frame the piece. So that was my totally original idea. Then it becomes this idea of the whole piece as a metaphor of a note of violoncello. Both could live well together, you know. One didn't erase the other one. But what I like about the question, about your question, which I think is fundamental, is that for me, it's very important that it's good to start with an idea, but it's very important that this idea in the process of composition can change. Because when you start writing, you don't know what your material is about. So you start writing and you start discovering your material. And if you are in constant conversation with your material might obviously suggest you things that you were not thinking at the beginning. So to me, it's very important that one always keeps this openness, you know. You cannot, to me, you cannot decide a piece before you write the whole thing because you don't know what you're going to start writing, you know. You know, but you don't know, you know. When you start writing, there are a lot of things that are unexpected, that happens, sometimes errors that you accept and you incorporate. So in a way, it's very important to me to leave that door open, you know, and to grow with the piece, and that the form grows with the piece too, you know, because the form, the material can tell you many other things that you were not thinking at the beginning.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys, guys and girls, of course, if you thinking that way, or you, I know many people who decides everything from the beginning, you know. To me, that will be very difficult, and at the same time, I don't know if it's productive because it's you force things through, you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, so what we can do is listen to the piece, and then perhaps some more questions will arise. Okay. So let me see if you hear everything. I'm gonna pass a YouTube link. Okay. Do you hear the sound? Yeah, everything is fine.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what do I put? The score or the? Yeah, the score. No. It's better to see the score. Okay. Sorry about that. One question before we hear it. Do you listen to me? Hello?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Do you see the video also or not?
Not only the score.
Only the score. Okay. No, because I was going to go from one to the other, but I think it's going to be difficult. That okay. Okay. So I send the music. Okay. Ok. Perdón, perdón. Un momento. A ver, a ver. Sí, con respecto a la pregunta que, concerning the question that Well asked me, all this part of this, you understood the fundamental section, let's say. All that was absolutely integrated afterwards, okay? At the beginning, I didn't think at all about this part. Is that afterwards, when I thought about this piece of making like a metaphor of a note of violoncello, that I added that section, okay? So that's was going back to your question, Nahuel. Anybody has a question or do you want to discuss about something in particular?
I have a question, if it's possible.
Yeah, Tomislav.
In any case, is this traces, is this ninth one in any way connected to your first one?
Well, no, not much. Not much. I perhaps one can recognize some aspect, but not at all. Actually, if we have time today, we'll go, because it's the one that they're going to play in Mixtur, so we might see a little bit of the first one.
And this one is going to be played on Biennale, so that's...
This one, no? Yes. Yeah. So to tell you the truth, it's very frustrating to hear it like that, because it has all the infrabass that are in the piece, you know, that when you're in the hall, it really makes the hall vibrate sometimes, you know. It's very, here also all the space with all this timbrical first movement and last movement is very important. And here we can hear just frontal. So it's a little bit frustrating, but it's what it is, you know.
Just to make sure, this is fixed electronics, right?
This is fixed electronics, yes. I started, all the trices started, I wanted to be very orthodox doing real time, but I had a lot of problem with that because, you know, to have real time, you have to have somebody who follows the map, you know, that makes it today, makes it all the time. And I don't do the electronics. I work always with a RIM, you know, computer guy, designer that works with me, you know, but I don't do the patch max and stuff like that. So it was very complicated to have them always in real time. So I started doing in what you mean fake real time, you know, that you do real time, but then you record it and it's fixed. And then I started just adding other stuff, not only real time. Like after number seven is the last one I did real time. It's all temps différé, deferred time.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
So Martin, I have another question. When you work with with creating the electronic sounds,
yeah.
How is your work in that sense? Do you choose the sounds with the person?
Yeah, look, I have
you record.
Yes, actually, I try to do as much as I can from the cello, but many times I take some freedoms that I didn't took before. But I know very well the programs in terms of I know what they can do and how. But I'm not the one who know how to write the codes and stuff like that. You know, when I do real time. So I always work with somebody who is. Actually, this one guy who I did the last 10 traces almost, which is he's called Max Brucker. So we have developed the patch together, you know, and many times he suggests things and show me things that I don't know, and then we always find a place to put the things that are interesting. So it's really his the contribution of the is important somehow, you know. Because the RIM, the réalisateur informatique, he knows the programs extremely well and the new things that perhaps I don't know, some stuff, you know. So in that sense, it's important. It's important that also there is a good understanding of the aesthetic, you know. He understands well my ideas, etc. So it's important. The connection is very important.
Okay. Thank you. And even even it's not real time. Do you always use Max for the electronic sounds?
Well, yeah, mostly with Max and also Max for Life and Super Collider. But mostly, let's say, for example, if I want something, a granulation, you know, sometimes he will propose to do it in another program than Max, you know. And as long as the sound is good and is what I wanted, or, you know, then it's fine with me. But let's say the bass is Max, and then we go somewhere else also.
Okay.
Now the last traces, I was working a lot with analogic synthesizers, you know. But he did a module in Max with that, and it was really interesting because it was not limited to that only, you know.
Okay.
So
thank you.
That's the idea. So if you have more questions, if not, we can start seeing another one, which is actually one that I did in real time completely, which is Trust 7, is for soprano. So we can go to that one. Let me open the score. Okay, hold on, I just prepared the whole thing. Okay, let's find. Okay, so it was clear for you in the other one, the idea of this Calvino idea, for example, of exactitude in the middle and diffuseness in the frames, in the two movements that frame the piece, or the idea of that was clear to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share this one. Okay. So this is all in real time. And this one is completely, totally different of what I did in the last trace. I mean, this is nothing to do with the Calvino idea, but let's say the main formal idea here was to work on two premises. The fragmentation, or the, let's say, no, not the fragmentation, no, the narration, something that is continuous, and the total abstraction, something which is, yeah, that doesn't have any direction really. Try to work with these two opposites, narration versus abstraction, okay? And I depart from this idea of abstraction to arrive to this idea of narration, of something which is completely continuous, and start with something which is completely abstract in a way, okay? That was the main idea. The idea to go from this point to this one is with the idea of deconstructing, okay, deconstruction. So from this idea, which is, I will explain in a bit, I will arrive to this through a process of deconstruction, okay? So this first movement, this first section or state, I like to think of states, in the sense like vaporous states, or un état vaporeux ou un état de solide ou un état liquide, okay? In that sense, like a liquid state or a vaporate state or a solid state, okay? I like to think many times the movements like that. That has nothing to do with what I'm going to explain now, but the idea is that this first movement, I will describe it as a musical mobile, okay? Where I have, I will create a space and then have a lot of different objects that are kind of floating, like a musical mobile, okay? So that's the idea of the abstraction, which everything is going to come through this, okay? So let's see. It's a little laborious to see that, but it's interesting because it will explain how the piece is conceived. In this musical mobile, I will have objects. All the objects are very disconnected, They are simple objects and they are complex objects. So, for example, we're going to start with this note. You see a tenuto note. each one has its own electronic treatment, okay? So it's not only the node that is written, but is the node with its treatment, okay, the object. So this, for example, is a simple object. It's just one tenuto node. The interesting thing is that this node is going to be captured by the electronics. All that is real time, by the computer, and then during the whole piece, which lasts 12 minutes, it will do a glissando throughout the piece. This C will glissando during the 12 minutes to arrive to a very, very low note that is almost inaudible, okay? So that's a simple object. Then I have another simple object that is this arpeggio, okay? And this arpeggio, there is nothing to it, just has a harmonizer that that transpose it, I don't remember, but maybe several octaves and some cents downwards, okay? Then I have this third object, okay, here. That is an object, it's like a line, which the mouth, shut mouth, okay? And the characteristic of this element, besides the timbre of the mouth that is shut, is the glissando at the end. This glissando will trigger a manger that will take this glissando and make a spiral downwards, very low, that will transpose it downwards and will turn like a spiral, okay? So those are three simple objects. This is a fourth object, also simple one, which is like a granulation. You do with the, like that, and then the computer, of course, corroborate this sound and make it more granular, okay? And here we arrive to the first complex object, okay? Until here. Why I say complex? Because there are several elements that compose it, and each element will have its own electronics, okay? So there are three elements here, which is this kind of jetato, which is not sung, but just percussive. Then there are some kind of percussive sung notes, like I say, think of a triangle, think of a percussion instrument like a grosse caisse, bass drum, guiro, etc. That was working with a singer, you know. So there are all these percussion elements, and each one of those sounds have a different treatment. So this is the first complex object, okay? Then here I have a second complex object with three different elements. I have this, which is in the upper staff, which is all sung, voisé. So those are sung notes. Then you have all this, which is air, okay? Sorry, not that. We give a air sound, rhythmical. And then the third, yeah, sorry. This voisé things will trigger some contractions and the stretch and contraction, okay? Like will generate some material out of these notes. This will generate a delay spectral. Are you familiar with those treatments? Hello? I don't hear anybody. Are you there?
Yes,
or
yes, I am.
You're all asleep already? Okay. So this is a delay spectral, which will trigger some sounds. I mean, I'm not going to explain now what it is because it will be too long. And these are like PC, you know, so that we will trigger multi-tap delays, okay? So we have three different elements with three different treatments. Okay, so this is the second complex object. Then we go back to this simple object, which was this melody with the shut mouth, with the mouth shut, with this glissando at the end that will trigger this spiral downwards. It's the same as this. Okay, are you following all?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yes.
Then we have here the third. It's a little laborious, but then you'll understand why I take time explaining that, because it's important for the understanding. This is the third complex object, where I have very fast notes with accents. So the accents will trigger some, how you call that? Modèle de résonance. They are like bells, okay? And then the other notes are triggered also. There is something like delay spectral, but arranged in a different way, okay? No, sorry, here it is. Stretch and compression and the modèle de résonance that are like bells, okay? Then again, we go back to this simple object that was the same as this, the arpeggio that we saw at the beginning, okay? Then again, the granulation that we saw at the beginning. Then again, this element with the piece, the souffle and the note voisée, and the vocal noise, the noise, sang notes, okay? And then lastly, this complex object again with, which I just explained here, okay? Here, okay? So this whole first movement, let's say, is this musical object where we have the space and they're like floating those simple objects and these complex objects, okay? So that's what I call the first, let's say, abstract state of the piece, okay? So, as I told you before, through a process of deconstruction of this first movement, I will arrive to the end, which is totally linear and narrative. So what I will do, I will take out, I will take each one of these complex objects, I will extract him from here and make a whole movement of it. So the second movement will be a zoom or a development of this idea, of this object here, okay? The third movement will be a zoom, like if you do a, you know, a close, how you say, a camera, yeah, a zoom into this element, and I construct a whole movement with this element. And the fourth movement will be also this complex object that will become a whole movement. And then the last movement will find all the linear object, all the linear and simple objects together, and it will become like a linear and narrative line. I don't know if you understand the idea. Is it clear?
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not confusing the way, okay. So you see, the idea here is to have these ideas. I mean, when we're talking about form, we can take any element of any musical element and construct a polarity with this element. This is all what is about form. It's not about I, B, C. We don't need to talk about that. This is totally academic to think form in that way, you know. We have to think form as an idea, create a polarity, and then see how we do this process to go on from one size to another, okay? But this is what, to me, is so important in every piece. This is, to me, is like the real base of the piece, you know, the nucleus of the piece. Is how you generate. And this idea could be anything. You can make form with, for example, I was thinking the other day, I have a piece with with the dynamic is the formal object of the piece, the dynamics. I mean, I had, for example, a movement in an orchestra where everything is 4-piece with the strings with sourdine de plomb, with lead mute, you know, so everything is extremely pianissimo and muted, and everyone plays things totally different. But because the dynamic becomes a unifying factor that makes that whatever you play there, but if you keep the dynamics, it unify all the material, even though the material is totally, totally different from one phrase to another, from one instrument to another. The same thing in the contrary. I have a place in a piece, for example, a whole section where everything is fortissimo, which the dynamic is the only element that ties together, you know, but everybody is doing exactly the opposite, or things that are completely not tied together at all. So you see, any element in music, it could be the temporalities, it could be any element of music, we have to think in that way. Let's see how we can create a polarity and how we can create parcours, how you say parcours, a trajectory between those elements, you know. But this is what form is about to me, and this is for me the most important aspect in music. Then everything else you can go anywhere as long as you have these elements control and clear in your mind. Okay. So any question about this piece before we hear it? I'm going to show you the score a little bit. So as I say, the first complex objects will become the first movement, let's say the second movement, because the first movement is this exposition. But you see, I have this element that is sung. Then I have all this percussion element, this jettato percussive with this all the time. You see, each time it does one of these sounds, triangles will have a different treatment. Every time it has this percussive elements, we have also its treatment.
Excuse me, are you sharing?
Yes. Excuse me?
Are you sharing the score? Because I can't see the score.
Ah, sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Tomislav. I wasn't sharing it. Yeah. Thank you for that. So nobody says anything. I can keep 1 hour like that. Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
now I see it. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so you see those elements that we see here. Where is it? Sorry. Yeah, the first, as I was saying, this is the first complex element with all these percussion elements. Mm-hmm. We find it here. A zoom of that, you see, with all these elements coming back, the triangles, you will hear, when you hear, will recognize all that, you know.
Martin, I have another question.
Yes, please.
Sorry for so many questions.
No, it's good. I like questions.
When you compose the first part with the separated elements,
yes,
that it seems to me like a sort of a modular composing, like the separated things, each with its own identity.
Yes.
Did you think these elements separated and not connected one to the other, and then you organize one after the other? Did you thought about them one after the other in this particular order you have now? Or did you have them separated in the first time and then you ordered them? How did you think that?
Actually, I compose each one in relationship to the other, in the sense that I wanted things that are pretty different, you know, that they send me somewhere else, that they induce a treatment totally different, you see. I was composing that more in terms of complementarity, You see, if I have this, which is static, let's say, even though there is a glissando, then I have this arpeggio which is moving, and then I have this melody with another timbre, and then this granulation with contrast directly with this. I don't remember if I did one after the other. I don't remember that process because actually it was 13 years ago, you know. But I remember that each one that, yeah, my way of composing these elements were this idea of complementarity, of difference, of complementarity, you see. And the idea, even though what it was very important was this idea of narration and abstraction, because the narration is important to think about that. Actually, I will make a parenthesis if you permit me to. I don't want to digress too much, but I work a lot with other things than music, pure music. This is pure music, okay? Music for the concert. But I work a lot with ciné-concert, you know, and or poesy and music, poetry and music, or opera, whatever. And what I like very much about working with the other is that many times the other, you're going to appropriate the problematic of the other. So I work a lot during 10 years with films of Buñuel. And one of the characteristics of the films of Buñuel is the way he will deal with the narration, you see? From the first film until the last, the narrative question in Buñuel is extremely important, and he always finds different solutions and things that you never will expect. So once I started working with his films, I never thought about the narration in music as something, you know, particular. I mean, until I started working with his films. And then this idea of narration becomes, I appropriate this idea. And there is no piece that I cannot think about the role of the narration will have, you see? So the basic idea when I did that, that's why it's so important to do works with other stuff, because it nourish your music alone. You know, you think about things you would never think if you didn't work with these other persons, you know. Is it clear? Yes, sure. So that was the idea of why I wanted to deal with the narration and the abstraction. Okay. What were we at? Okay, so I was explaining the sum of this idea. Okay, so this idea has its own logic and nothing else to say. The second one is the one with the souffle, with the breath, and the note voisée and the P, the piece, you know, the plausible notes, okay? Those three elements. So there is a whole section about this, which is own development. You know, here the line that is sung has a direction to the high register. Whatever is breath, it disappears little by little. You know. So these are the directionalities that I will give to this object, let's say. When I do the movement, I have to give some direction to that, okay?
I wanted to ask,
yes.
When you make this choice in the form to put first the abstract part and after the narrative one, why do you choose this order and not the opposite?
I could have. But actually the narrated part is the last one. Once I took, because I wanted to do like a revelation, you know, like I have this form, and if I take all the complex objects, then I have this line that is there, but nobody has heard it in the first moment, but we discovered at the end of the piece, you understand? So that's why I put it on the last, because it was like, in a way, a revelation. I mean, I don't like too much the word, but you know, it's a form that is revealed after I took the piece, all the elements that make it abstract, let's say. But I could have designed it the way you say, they say start with the narration and finish with the abstraction. But
like a mystery.
What?
We want to keep like a mystery.
Yeah, in a way, see, you see, I talk about the book of Calvino, no? And the book of Calvino, he died when he wrote that book, he didn't finish it. But one of the things he wanted to write after that, those 6 premises, you know, 6 memos. So one is a consistency with a rapidity, I talk about that. But what he wanted to write afterwards was about the ending, about the beginning. And the ending is extremely important, this kind of elements, you know, how if you can reveal something that makes you understand the whole piece at the end, to me, it's like you have achieved something important, you know, formally. So that was the idea, how thinking about the ending as a way of revealing an idea that was in it, but we didn't see it, and you reveal it in a way. So that was, yeah, the aim, the trajectory, the directionality of the piece. But if I have done what you say, the start with the narrative and finish with the abstract, then I will, yeah, that would be interesting to do a piece like that, you know.
I think it's curious because I have the feeling that when you begin by the more narrative, comprehensible parts, and then you go to the more abstract, you have this feeling of the construction, because you were talking about the construction, because how you got to this material, and you know, as a storytelling, I mean, you have this feeling when you go, and when you do the opposite, you have like a feeling of construction in a way, you know.
Yeah. But I like this ambiguity, you know, because you are constructing by deconstructing, you know, or something like that. So all this ambiguity to me was interesting and was more unexpected than the contrary, you know. The contrary will be more expected. You start with some, at the same time, it could be more effective in the sense that it's difficult the piece at the beginning, you know, to have the audience on it, you know, because it's much easier when you have something narrative, you know, linear. So in a way, it's what you say could be much more effective, and it's something I will absolutely do at some point, I think, you know. For example, if well, we won't have time today, but the cello has one, you know, is the exact opposite of the piano piece I did before, you know. The two have the same concept, you know, but one is what you are saying. One starts like that, the other like that, you know. But anyway, we won't have time to see all this. But if you, okay, so same thing with the third movement, okay. And then we have at the end, this is the line, you know, where we start with the arpeggios, and then we go to these tenuto notes, these granulations, these things, bouche fermée, closed mouth, etc., until the end. Okay, but it's a linear thing. Is that clear, or that? Any other question before we hear it? No. I don't hear. Hola. No, te escucho muy bajito. I hear very low. ¿Quién es, Javier?
Sí.
Sí, decime. Tell me.
No.
Ahora, now yes.
Bueno, me disculpo, te lo voy a hacer en español porque creo que va a ser más claro y luego respondes en inglés.
Yo lo traduzco en inglés después, okay. I will translate in English afterwards, okay.
Mucho la cuestión que has comentado antes con respecto a cómo transmitir la idea.
Sí.
Porque me gustaría que reflexionaras, o sea, que nos comentaras algo más acerca de qué implicaciones tiene eso con respecto a el lenguaje, la escritura, esos elementos de transmitir, de llegar a comunicar. Si la idea, digamos, que es el principio constructor de la obra, y es una idea que yo comparto totalmente, ¿qué, digamos, para ti o para usted como compositor, digamos, qué reflexiones le lleva o qué decisiones le lleva a tomar?
If I
Con respecto a
understood
una
well,
obra. Sí.
a ver, si entendí bien es con respecto a esta idea que que uno va a poner que va a poner
Claro, si la
en
idea, digamos,
juego,
del principio motor de la creación,
cómo se
que,
relaciona con el material.
incluso con la escritura, con el lenguaje, porque, por ejemplo, veíamos estas dos obras y son similares con respecto a escritura, pero usted mismo ha dicho que eran dos ideas diferentes. Entonces,
Claro.
digamos, ¿cuáles son las reflexiones de la poiesis, de la creación, de esa idea inicial? Digamos, ¿qué conclusiones saca cuando va a tomar ese punto de partida? Que me ha parecido muy interesante.
A ver, si entiendo bien ese punto de partida con relación al material que uso, a la música que voy a escribir, a la escritura. ¿Es eso? Porque, for me...
Lenguaje armónico y
Okay,
grafía.
okay,
O sea,
okay. So,
el medio para llegar a ese fin.
okay, so I will translate what you asked me. Is how these ideas of the whole pieces, these concepts of, for example, the Calvinos I told in Trans 9, or in this one, in Tracy 7, this idea of narration against abstraction, etc., how it relates in a way with the material and with the writing of things. And I think to me what is important is that the material you are going to work, it should be, as Nahuel said a little bit, modular material. It means one has to think about this element as objects that you can define, because if you write, let's say, with theme and motives and stuff like that, then you are caught up in another logic. You are caught up in a logic of development of all the things that we have learned about how you develop a motive or a theme or whatever. Or if you do, for example, repetitive music, which it has a very concrete way of developing it. You repeat and then you decalate and you put the rhythmical stuff, you by phasing, by dephasing or phasing, etc. So what is important is that the element, the musical material, is a musical material that is thought as an object, so that you can really transform it as you like, in a way, that you have this freedom. For example, I never think, ¿entendés todo esto en inglés o no? Sí, okay. I never think about, for example, harmonic progression, okay? Because I think that harmony, if we think about our harmonic progression as the main thing, is that we want to do the things we inherited with the tonal language. Here we have the chance of be totally free of the tonality in a way, you know what I mean? We have to take advantage of that. We have the freedom to work on materia, on forms, on sculptural, on to sizzle the music. We have this, to me, is like materia, materia, texture, forms, you see? So this freedom of the material then gives you the freedom to imagine forms and concepts like that. This is, if I understood your question, this is my way to think about it.
Bueno, entiendo que lo que está diciendo, que el material al fin y al cabo le lleva, que un poco lo que comentaba antes de la libertad en la composición.
Sí, que el material permits me
tiene su propia
this
vida,
freedom.
digamos.
Exactly, the material permits you the freedom, Then if you're going to apply other concepts, coming from other styles, you see, then you are stuck. Then you don't have this freedom. Okay, so for example, as I tell you, I never do a progression, a harmonic progression, because the harmony never will have the weight that the tonal harmony used to have. You know, the tonal harmony has a functionality, and this is very strong. And with a harmony that doesn't have functionality, we cannot have the same results. You see. So now one have to take this freedom to be liberated from that and think totally in a different way.
Claro, me parece, o sea, muy interesante y exactamente por ahí va, de qué, digamos, consecuencias tiene esa forma de pensamiento de que no voy a utilizar, digamos, un lenguaje preestablecido, sino algo que la propia obra me lo exige, digamos, en cierta forma.
Exactamente. Pero para eso uno tiene que estar preparado a aceptar todo eso.
Exactamente. No.
Y deshacerse de todas las cosas que uno hereda en cierta manera.
Genial.
Muchas cosas, ¿no?
Claro.
Do we have time to listen to the piece? Do you want?
I have one question also.
Yes, Lena.
Even in your piece for solo cello, I see you have like different these objects which are very contrast. And as I always try to visualize something, I would like to see it live performance. So this cello is like some really big gestures and like very one note and then. So, for example, in this piece for a singer, did you thought about some kind of mise en scène?
No, I didn't. Actually, something I would like to do, but I was too busy with the music. And of course, it's something that, to tell you the truth, is something that I would like to develop, but I don't have much idea, you know.
Because music just give it by itself. It's just very still long notes and then it's. I think
well, it has a dramatism in itself.
Yes, huge drama.
But it's something I would, if a metteur en scène comes and say, Martin, I would like to do something with the piece, I would love to, you know. But
yeah, I think it would be great.
But I don't do that because it's not. I don't know I don't have the elements, you know, to do that. I never developed them, you know.
Okay.
But it's something, of course, I wouldn't mind at all. At the contrary, if it's well done and everything, I would love to.
Okay.
Perhaps listen to the piece. I really want to hear.
Okay,
this.
Let's listen it. It's going to be 2-3 minutes over. So I mean, the last 11 minutes. So it's okay. Okay, so we listen to it. Okay. Let me see. Everybody sees everything.
una de las cosas que aprendí en la vida. Las cosas que aprendí. Es una de las cosas que aprendí en la vida. Es una de las cosas que aprendí. Cuando llegué a casa la ahora les digo que no lloren más.
So, any question about all this?
Bravo.
Thank you. Is it clear with all the things we talk about? Yeah.
Very much. Now that we see the score and hear the recording even more than when you were talking before. So
Yeah.
very, very clear just by itself.
Okay. So I don't know. It's time, I think. So I will see some of you the next days. No.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for your attention, and we keep going then. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the lecture.
Take care.
Thank
Gracias.
you.
Bye
Gracias.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.